Yo, what is going on today, guys? I'm back for another discussion video. Basically, I want to be talking about the grass type Pokemon and why I think they will constantly struggle in the game. So, for people who don't know, Pokemon TCG Pocket has a mechanic called weakness. And basically, what weakness does is certain types do an additional 20 damage over another type. So, for example, every grass type in the game takes 20 extra damage from fire types. And obviously there are certain Pokemon in types, like for example, Moltres is a fire type Pokemon, but because in like the main games he's like fire in flying, in Pokemon Pocket he is weak to electric instead of water like most other fire types. There are some exceptions, but like for the majority, every single grass type, I'm pretty sure at least in the game currently, is weak to fire. And obviously because they're weak to fire, what are grass types actually good against? So grass types are good against the fighting type Pokemon in this game. And the fighting types are basically a bunch of like rock, ground, and actual fighting types from the mainline games put together. So the grass types are only good against the Pokemon who were ground types in the mainline game or not turned in the fighting game in the card game. So for example, grass types are only good against Sandslash, Dugtrio, Golem, Onix, Marowak, Rhyhorn, and Kabutops. And with the addition of the new Mythical Island mini set, also Stonejourner. And out of all those ground types I just mentioned, or fighting types I should say, only two of them are relevant. Only two of them are relevant, being Marowak EX and Golem. All those other fighting type cards really don't have any meta relevance. I mean, Kabutops is decent, but stuff like Onix, Rhyhorn, Stonejourner, and Dugtrio has, I guess, a little bit of use, but people really don't play them anymore. There's just better ground types now, or if I should say fighting types. You know what I mean. But you guys know what I mean. Before the mini set, when the game first launched with only the genetic Apex packs, grass types really didn't have any competitive play after the first weeks. Like a lot of people thought Venusaur EX was really strong, and then people figured out the meta, and all the fire types like Charizard and Blaine started doing good, which kind of pushed Venusaur into a mid-tier deck. The only really standout grass type was Executor EX, and that's only because it was one of the best cards going first, because if you could evolve it on your third turn for 1 energy and possibly be hitting coin flips for 80 damage. And Executor EX was really the only reason grass types were ever viable. Without Executor EX, stuff like Venusaur or any of the other grass type Pokemon would never be considered even viable. With these two cards that could potentially have been meta if stuff like Charizard didn't exist, because Charizard was a guaranteed loss. Unless they got extremely unlucky and didn't draw all the evolutions, there is no way to actually defeat Charizard, because Venusaur's main purpose was live in long of Erica's and its ability to the hill, where Charizard just did 200 damage, which just ignored the whole good part about the deck. And Executor EX would also get one shot and really couldn't sweep fast enough before Moltres could set up Charizard with enough energy to just be able to one-shot all of your Pokemon. And not only Charizard, Blaine was also right behind Charizard, with Ninetales doing 120 damage with Blaine, plus the weakness, which was doing 140 damage in total, or just 110 even without Blaine. So fire types were just doing too much damage for grass types, where even with the broken Erica card, we weren't able to really heal past the damage they were doing. And they were just very unfortunate matchups where both these decks, Charizard and Blaine, were very meta relevant. Not only that, after everyone writing Arcanine EX as being one of the worst Pokemon during the first couple weeks, everyone realized Arcanine EX was actually also just as broken as these other fire decks, basically causing 3 very good fire decks to be in the meta, just completely obliterating any chance for a grass type to be meta relevant. So we fast forward to the new mini set Mythical Island releasing, and upon the thing, many people, such as myself, realized that Celebi EX and Serperior were broken. A super broken combo that allowed Celebi to flip so many coins that it was almost guaranteed to nuke something for up to 200 plus damage, one-shotting everything in the game. During the first week of this mini set, Celebi had a very dominant performance in multiple tournaments that went on in the first week. And then the next week, no Celebi is doing any like breakout performances anymore. In one of the biggest tournament that happens every week, Celebi didn't even get top 64. So did Celebi fall off? Did people find like the counter to Celebi? Was Celebi really not that good? Was it just overplayed because everyone was trying out new decks? And the answer is no. Celebi and Serperior didn't get any worse. People just started playing fire decks again. People started playing Charizard, Arcanine, Charizard, or Charizard, Charizard and Arcanine combined, and Blaine, which even got a buff with the new Rapidash. So it's not that Celebi and Serperior got worse, which was the only meta relevant grass deck that we actually ever had. It's just that the chance of running into 3 decks that just almost instantly just beat you is just a really bad thing for Celebi to happen. Like Celebi, like all it takes is running into 1 or 2 of those bad matchups and pulls, and you're suddenly not going to be able to get the top 64, even top 32. So basically, this is my whole point. Celebi and Serperior are some of the best cards in the game, but because they are a grass type, they are held back by the weakness to fire, which fire probably has the most amount of good decks in the game. Because if you think about it, no, like maybe water is the only other arguable type that has more viable decks, but no other type really has like 3 decks that are considered top 8 to top even higher than that. And then if we look at Mewtwo EX, which is the best deck in the game, until now there was not really a strong dark type deck. Now with the introduction of Scolipede Wheezing absolutely destroys Mewtwo, but the thing is, there's not enough dark, like, while that deck is good, it's not like a high tier deck, it's like a high mid tier deck, or maybe a low high tier. So it gets shit on by other decks. Yeah, so it gets shit on by other decks, which means the chance of a Mewtwo player running into it is not going to be that high once you get higher in the tournament. You might run into one in pulls, and it might be super bad for one of the Mewtwo players, but I mean, you also still have a chance of beating it. It's not like a super, like it's like I say, it's like an 80% favorite in Scolipede, but there's always a chance. Where with Celebi, there's just so many cards that one-shot it. If Celebi gets knocked out super early, or if you can't just draw the right cards, the fire decks can just sweep you. And even having access to a broken support card like Erica, like I mentioned earlier, does not save grass types from these fire decks. That's why I don't think that Celebi and Serperior suddenly got worse. I think that grass types are just fated to always just be in a very bad position because there's so many good fire decks in the meta. Maybe when the Johto packs come out and more decks come out that kind of like shit on these fire decks and make them less good, maybe grass decks can rise back up. But until then, I don't know. Like, I'm not saying Celebi is never going to win another tournament again. I'm just saying it's going to be really hard because you have to like run into one of these. You just have to pray you don't run into one of these 3 bad matchups. And because of this reason, I really do think that grass types can never be a top 2 deck. Everyone was saying Celebi was the new top 2 deck. I think Celebi is somewhere in the top 8. I don't know if it's the 3rd best deck, the 4th best deck, the 5th best deck. I just don't think it's number 2, just because if there are if there are 3 fire decks in the top 10, how are you going to be a top 2 deck if you lose the 3 of them? Because if you look at Mewtwo EX, what does Mewtwo EX lose to? It loses to Scolipede and Wheezing, and that's really it. I guess the Gyarados matchup might be pretty bad for it also. So what, Mewtwo EX loses like also like a top 10 matchup and maybe like a top 15 matchup. It's not like Celebi where it loses 3 top 10 matchups. And then also it's not that, I mean, it's decent in the Mewtwo EX, but it's not that good. Like Mewtwo EX probably still beats it overall. So that's 4 matchups that are bad for in the top 2. Pikachu EX can destroy you if you don't get lucky and draw Serperior right away. And I don't know, it's just like basically I think grass types are forever doomed because there are 3 meta fire decks right now. Maybe in the future this can change. But this was like a little discussion I wanted to do. If you guys share this like opinion, or if you guys don't believe what I'm saying is like factual, let me know in the comments. I'm down to have a discussion. This is just like my thing. I just want to talk about it because I've been playing grass decks the most in this game. I feel like I'm kind of like rambling at this point. I feel like my points been made. Anyways, peace out and have a nice day, guys.